in heaven's name is devil's music? Where did devil's music come from?
Well, it didn't come from the Bible, because certain things, as we seen with David, he knew how to rejoice in the Lord. After slavery, a lot of people sharecropped, and they would sing those call and response songs, and it had a message. And then later, as they were free, then they could worship like they wanted to. But they had one thing: they want all the money, but the people at the club was making money. And so, since they are shortchanged of their goal, anything that's not church is the devil. If you notice, if it's a show, it would say old school and blues, because old school and jazz is not sinful. But our soul music, now I admit some of them are blushable, but our soul music is, Candy Staten explained it to me. The body is 3 or 4 folds. That when you are hurting, that's when a song comes. When you're feeling happy, that's another time. So they were thinking of money, and money is more powerful now than what it was when somebody like that Johnson guy played a guitar that nobody could. Devil's music. The man ended up dying. His son never got a chance to know him because he played devil music. And I'll let it go now.
Now, I'd just like to really comment on what you said really briefly. I think maybe devil's music came way before Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson capitalized on that term. I think he was like doubling down on it. He's saying, okay, you're going to call it devil's music? Here's I'm going to call it devil music and make some money by calling it devil's music. But the original place, like I like where you started and from the Bible. But and also they did call jazz and even Duke Ellington was frowned upon.
Well, yeah, just to piggyback on what you just started there with jazz being labeled the devil's music, it was my understanding, even around the time that in New Orleans, where jazz wasn't called jazz, at first it was called jazz, J-A-S-S, and that had to do with the brothels. And being that they were associating that music with the brothels, a lot of what beliefs that came out of that from church-going people versus people who were going partying and at the clubs, where they were at odds with one another simply because a lot of switching, a lot of shaking, a lot of who struck John, and just frivolity, and then some of it was pretty sexual too. Even in those days, we're talking about the turn of the century, before the early 1900s, it was called that. And so a lot of times to discourage young people from wanting to pursue that type of career or go in that type of directions, religious people or religious leaders and even parents would try to scare you based upon some other myths that they had heard as kids. You know, like you've heard the term old wives' tales. Well, this is kind of like an old wives' tales, but it's been in our community for years and years, and it never was spoken about until today, basically, because I've been hearing about it all the time, but no, I've never heard any discussions on it or something. I just like to pose a question to Dr. Smith there, James. What, if any, of your experience from the religious background when you started off a kid? You had mentioned to me that you were in a religion that was kind of like very strong about that. I don't want to. We're not here to bash any particular religions. I'm just trying to say, for lack of a better word, you had that experience as a child. Could you elaborate on some of that?